and events, and we would broadcast that out to all of the organizations. So instead of it just going to a small limited group, now all of a sudden there's an entire army of people. And so we've been working on getting that out. We now have emails and text messages, and we have monthly meetings. Our next meeting is July 24th at 155 Cadillac, which is right behind the Word of Life Church there on South Virginia by.
Why don't you express some of your personal opinions for Washoe and what you feel could be done to correct it? Not just a problem, but to correct it.
Well, that's why we formed the Washoe Freedom Coalition. We believe that there's plenty of talent here. We believe there's plenty of organizations. We believe that there's plenty of manpower, but there was no way to really harness all of that and make it work together. And so that's why we formed the Washoe Freedom Coalition, was so that we could be a central place for everybody to get updates, to get information from each of the other organizations whenever anybody had an event. And so we're working with everyone. We're working with Maurice and a number of organizations to find good candidates, get them trained, get them vetted, get them up to speed on languaging and messaging and all that stuff. Because 2026 is going to be a very critical year. It's a midterm. And so we really need to get a lot of people out, and we need to get them out in the primary in order to get really good people into the general to stand against the liberals that have a very well organized, oiled machine and a lot of money. So we don't have the money, so we have to get more organized and make everything we can do count. And part of what I'm doing here is I'm a software. I design software, and so I built a system called the Campaign Statistics, and it helps the candidates focus in on what precinct, which street, and certain people on that street in order to best use your time, energy, and money when you're canvassing, so you're talking to the right people at the right time in the right place.
Not to take away from what you just said, but it brought up something, and I want Maurice to describe a little bit of what we're trying to do to train candidates, get qualified people, and so they know what in the hell they're doing. Because we had some, in my opinion, some shitty candidates the last time. Maurice?
Well, I probably wouldn't say it like that, but yeah, we have the privilege of working with Nicholas and Kate and the Northern Nevada, what's it, Unity? Yes. United. Northern Nevada United, Ray, Red Move, and some others. We are actually going and canvassing for new candidates that want to run for any particular office, whether it be local or state office. And then we want to offer them an opportunity to become effective candidates. So we're going to do a candidate academy. We're going to host it at the Nevada Truckers Association, Paulinos' place. It'll be a day-long academy starting at 8 o'clock, breakfast and lunch will be provided, but it'll be in-depth information of how to run an effective campaign, what to look for, messaging, 30-second elevator speeches, how to present yourself, canvassing, how to go door to door, how to glean and gain volunteers. And we want to make sure that we have successful candidates. Bruce has also approached us and working with us on this. We want to have effective candidates in the offices that are available, that are going to be open offices, even some offices where we have to challenge maybe primary candidates. We're going to give them the opportunity to kind of see what it looks like, the nuts and bolts, the hands-on, what it takes to run an effective campaign. And that includes fundraising, because a lot of people think that just because you sign your name, you don't have to fundraise, money just pours in. It doesn't work like that. Once you make that commitment to run for office, you have to be willing to buy into it total commitment for the next 6-7 months until after the election. That's what it takes.
Maurice, will you repeat where the event's going to take place? and the
Yes, I
date?
will.
And you're going to be online sending emails, right?
Yes, we will. We will be sending out emails. We'll be sending out flyers where we have limited seating. We're going to go from 25 to 30 people. It'll be September. We see going to either September 6th or the 13th. We're just trying to solidify the presenters on the date that they'll be there. Once we do that, we'll be sending out information to Ray, to Nicholas, Kate, and some of the other Bruce, some of the other organizations to help us find those candidates.
Now,
So-
who's
Hey, Ray,
sponsoring
I'm gonna do a quick timeout, then we'll come back.
Sure.
So what I want to do is we're live streaming right now. We send this out for everyone to see because a lot of people will log on. Normally I live stream a half hour early, but the tech guy ran off and there was really something simple. So very frustrating. But anyway, we're brand new. So I'm going to start over like a brand new show, but we're not going to go through as much detail. So I'm going to start 1, 2, 3. Welcome to Red Move Luncheon, July. Hey, restart. Welcome to Red Move, July 11th at the Reno Town Mall. And today we have
Nicholas.
I read my nice stuff. Nicholas St. John. And as you see, we're spazzing out. So we have a little late start on the live streaming, but we're live streaming now. And I'm going to go back just a couple quick questions. We talked about Nicholas real fast, why he came here and what he's doing. And so we're going to go right into Nicholas. He came here about 6-7 years ago. You like Reno because it's small, it's homey. We didn't talk about taxes. One of the reasons I came here because I have a rule, no income tax state. And that's really important if you want to build a business. So what else? What are the other couple main things? And I'll hand it over to Ray, and Ray will start the show.
Well, Reno was actually the furthest place I could move west and not be in what I call Stupidville in California. I lived in LA for 15 years, and so was very used to that climate. Was glad I left in 2005.
You
So-
live where?
In LA. And so, and my dad was over in Modesto at the time, and so I was close enough I could go over and visit him. Unfortunately, before I got a chance to do that, he passed away.
What was he doing in Modesto?
I'm sorry?
He was in Modesto?
Yeah,
That's a wonderful town.
yeah.
The reason why I asked, I was a city councilman prior to 9/11. My family's from Central Valley, a lot of them, and in LA too. So that's really unique. And you know, Modesto is completely fallen apart. It's
Well,
really
it
not.
doesn't-
Most of California. So what else you're going to talk today? What are you going to be talking on today?
Well, I do one of the things my background is programming. I taught myself programming databases when I worked at the Jet Propulsion Lab for NASA and ended up becoming pretty proficient in database design and ended up, when we started doing this election integrity stuff, we started looking at it and I found out I could write code to do the analysis. And so during the election, we download the Secretary of State database for the voter records every day. And then I was running an analysis built on a very extensive spreadsheet giving us everything about the type of votes, the number of people who voted, number of Republicans, independents, all that stuff. And then we started seeing trends, and so we graphed that out and all that stuff. So I'm going to be talking about the anomalies that we found.
And I'll be putting up your PowerPoint. And so I'm going to hand it over to Ray. And Ray, this is just like a brand new show because it's being recorded. So if you go back and just touch bases, and maybe Tony at the very end or later on, if you could come up and explain AB, whatever it is, AB 396. I think that's really important. It's about what they're about to do with zoning in Reno and in the state. And that will be, it's all yours, Ray. Go ahead. So we're live.
Yeah. Explain more election integrity in Washoe. We had a register that quit because she disagreed and is suing the city. Tell me about election integrity.
So election integrity has to do with whether there's literally doors open for nefarious activities. And so what got me started was when, in the 2020 election, we looked at the Marsha Burke-Bigler, Alexis Hill race. And we found that in the first 5,000 votes, there was 77 instances where Alexis Hill got between 7 and 27 sequential votes, and Marsha Burke-Bigler, the sitting county commissioner for District 1, the most she ever got was 8.
Do you think Democrats?
That's not exactly something you normally see. So we wrote the reasonable doubt report. We presented that to the sheriff's office. 2 of the deputies that were with us in that meeting both acknowledged there could be something going on in the machines. In our state, that's all it takes. They could then go to the sheriff and have the sheriff remove the machines. He has that kind of power. He's the last constitutional position in this county to safeguard things that are nefarious from bothering or having problems with the people. So they denied it. They wouldn't do anything with it. But that was what put me on track. That and the provisional votes when Jeff O'Donnell, who's one of the top integrity guys in the country, called me and said, Nicholas, did you know that Washoe County has 0 provisional voting ballots? So that's not possible. So when we looked into it, finally, eventually, we found that there were over 5,500, but they didn't make sense. It said everybody voted out of Cold Springs. In an election where everybody says this is the most safe and secure election ever, ends up that in the polling books had every single person who voted on election day in 2020, the nomenclature, the numbers that were associated with them said everyone voted out of Cold Springs. Now we know that 40,000 people didn't vote out of Cold Springs, but that when you start seeing problems like that, you start asking questions. Of course, we never got any answers. But anyway, that's what put me on the track of this. So now we do extensive election. We have canvassing software, the campaign statistics that a lot of the precinct captains used. It gives you a lot of information, and you get to pick. I believe in writing code that's flexible, so they can pick just Republicans, just Democrats. They could do a combination. They could do third party. It even brings up lists that have a high probability of being someone Hispanic, because we're working very closely with Libra and AFP for the Hispanic community here in Reno. And with our statistics, we now understand how many independents a candidate needs to have in order to have success in getting elected. And a lot of those come from the Hispanic community.
Thank you. In other words, you think there's something a little bit on the corrupt side?
What I can say is it looks like there's anomalies. All we can do is tell you that we can't tell you that there's voter fraud. We can't tell you there's election fraud. What we can do is we can show you things that are statistically impossible. So the election cycle for Marsha Burke-Bigler and Marsha and Alexis Hill, Dreza Smith ran that in her statistical analysis, and it ended up being one with 50 zeros behind it. Possibility that you could have that many elections, and you would never see that turnout method and sequence ever in an election. And so the only way you can do that is if there's a program or something is interfering with that outcome.
That's a good way of putting it.
Thanks.
That's a good way of putting it. Instead of, what do you think is going to happen this time? Because it's critical for this next cycle.
Well, in the presentation, I'm going to go through and I'm going to blast through this thing. What we saw in the 24, so we analyzed the 22 race, the 24 races, and in here there's one specific race that we show there was something is basically virtually impossible method of voting that really somebody who should have won basically got trounced. And we don't know how to get any, so we've turned in literally dozens and dozens of complaints, things to the Secretary of State, and by and large been ignored. And so the thing that we've all been up against now for 4.5 years is, where's the accountability? If we find something, who can we talk to that will actually look at this? And I have 2 cases that went into the Sheriff's Department, and they've ignored me on both of them. So where's the accountability? We're still looking at that. But this report, so I'm going to show you just basically the tip of the iceberg. but I'm going to take it and we're going to spread that far and wide to as many of the people, even clear to the Trump administration.
Before we go on, and I forget, was DeCarlo. She just got married with Turning Point. What is your married name now?
Wait, oh, there it is. Wait, it is Waite. So,
What is it?
wait, like
Wait?
wait for it. So,
I got it.
yep.
Anyway, she's with Turning Point, and I see Elaine Grimes just came in. Anyway, so you think it'll be a better shot next session?
Yes and no. Until we get rid of the machines and until we get down to 1 or 2 days of voting and hand counts, there's no promises. Fortunately, we have a guy that's president now that is actually putting in some executive orders that could affect the 2028 race, but we don't have the federal elections in 2026, which a lot of this stuff could be in. But we're still working on getting a bunch of people, basically an army built so that we could do hand count as a backup, or not a backup, but a certification or validation of the machines, which would really be helpful. But again, the stumbling block is getting the county commission to say, yes, we'd like to have a backup hand count. And right now with the commission that we've got, unless Clara Andriola manages to step up and actually do a conservative vote, she's basically the one who would block a hand count.
Before we ask you more questions, I want Maurice to describe the candidate process that he started to say in a candidate school that's coming up in September. And by the way, I know of 4 candidates running for Reno mayor right now. And they are Devin Reese, Tutti Frutti. But anyway, Kate Marshall and Eddie Lorton. I talked to Eddie yesterday. And then one you may or may not know is Nevada Moon, Diane Sullivan. She's about to get her doctorate degree.
All of her children too? Are all of her children also getting doctorates?
I couldn't hear.
She said all of her children are getting doctors.
She said she only has 4, but you be nice now. Anyway, Maurice, take it away for a minute. Speak closer.
Thanks,
They couldn't
Ray.
hear.
I appreciate the invitation one more time. We are excited about 2026, which is right around the corner. Our long-term objective, of course, is to be prepared for 2030, which is a reapportionment. And in order to make sure that the gerrymandering is done fair and equitable, we have to make sure that we take control of both chambers in the state legislature. And it's going to take a Herculean task, and all of us pulling and working together in whatever vast areas that we're going to become experts in, whether it's Red Move or the Freedom Coalition or whomever, the Washoe County Republican Party, the RWR, so that we can move Washoe County from purple to red again. For those of us that have been here a long time, I've been here since the mid-'70s, so
You were here when Noah came.
I was just about. In fact, I introduced Noah, so. But been here a long time and worked under Raggio and the likes of Townsend and some of the others. And we tried to do what was best for the state, making sure we had good policies. But in order to anticipate the future, we want to be able to have good candidates that are running for the right office with the tools that are necessary to become effective candidates. I got involved a couple cycles back when Michael Kineski was over the party. He asked me to do some candidate recruitment. I think for the first time we had a full slate of candidates, and out of that slate, we only won one seat, and that was a school board seat. and it got me to thinking, well, what's transpiring, what's going on. The following campaign cycle, we had a few candidates that were on the ballot, but none of them actually won except for the incumbent. So this time we said we've got to do some things different. So we want to make sure that we take the candidates and give them the tools to be successful. And so we're going to launch a candidates academy either September 16th or the 13th. And we're just trying to confirm the presenters. They're going to come in from back east. I think we'll have a couple of local presenters as well. We're going to provide them with the tools for effective campaigning. That's all the way from fundraising to name ID to canvassing to recruiting volunteers, 30-second elevator speech so that they can be articulate, well-versed in the issues depending on what seat they're running for, know their constituency and the particular district's awards, provide them the tools, whether it's through Nicholas or somebody else or TP USA, or whether it's us, making sure we have a ground game that is effective, that we can beat the Democratic machine at their own game. So we're on the march, and we're trying to form it and organize it, work with the various organizations. So it'll be hosted at the Nevada Truckers Association, Paul Enos's facility. It's a day-long event. It'll start at 8 o'clock, should conclude about 3. Lunch and breakfast and lunch will be provided. There'll be a $25 head charge. Not that we're making any money on it. It's just to kind of ferret out the people, put a little skin in the game. So if you're serious about it, you pay the $25 and come on in. We'll have workbooks, information, and then we'll walk alongside of them once they decide and have signed their affidavits to run for office. So we'll help them throughout the process.
This next go-around coming up, it's critical to do it now to get good candidates, get them trained, and get them working, and for a change, get Washoe back to being GOP. And I forgot to mention one person that just Candy Breen just joined us. And anyway, now it's time for each of you, if you would come up here so we can capture it on camera where Kid is. Ask Nicholas questions. The reason we want it up here is because the camera it doesn't pick up everything.
Ray, before we ask questions, I'm sorry to interrupt. I think Kid has something that she wants to announce too. I think it's Miss Wait. She has something.
DeCarlo.
Something that she needs to announce as well. I think it's very important in all the aspects and all the tentacles that we're doing. We can find good candidates, but if we don't have good precinct leaders, we're in trouble as well.
Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Maurice, for that. So like Maurice was saying, we do need the grassroots warriors, and a lot of that aspect is the precinct captains in Washoe County, but all over. And that is one of Turning Point's biggest focuses this year, is to train up precinct captains and to get them actually working. There's about an 80% vacancy rate nationwide, and that's applicable to Washoe County as well. I believe we have about 400 precincts and only 100 of them are filled with captains. And in that number, even less than that is actually active and reaching their neighbors. So this Tuesday, July 15th at 6 p.m., we're going to be doing a precinct captain training. It's going to be at the Rayleigh's Community Center off of Robb Drive. And it's just going to be a good time to be able to train the precinct captains that we have, and also if anyone is interested in becoming a precinct captain, learning a little more about what it is. And the goal of this training is to get the precinct captains active again after 2024 and to put in some new life into the movement. To really focus on connecting with your neighbors in your neighborhood, because that's how we win elections. If you win your neighborhood, you can win your state. So.
Okay, maybe some people don't know what the duties of a supposed precinct captain, because a lot of it's been in name only and they haven't done their job.
Yeah, exactly. For a while there, I will have to admit that I didn't really understand what a precinct captain is either. So essentially what it is you're the CEO of your neighborhood. You're the one that helps your neighbors understand what's going on with all things related to elections. With your neighbors, you're the one that kind of has the responsibility of telling them, hey, like what ballot initiatives that are on the ballot and how to vote for them, and also what are the best candidates to be voting for. You're really the sort of watchman to be able to sound the alarm for what's going on to help educate your neighbors. And you're also the one that helps make phone calls and knock doors, help with elections, being at the polling locations and observing elections, just to really help the GOP and be that arm that's the grassroots activist for what we're all fighting for.
Thank you for Maurice asking you, and
thank you.
because it's critical. I couldn't hear.
The date for the precinct captain meeting is July 15th. That's this coming Tuesday at 6 p.m. And the location is Rayleigh's Community Center at Robb Drive.
Now, with that in mind, each of you, if you would, not trying to be bossy, but it's the only way we can pick you up, is to come over here, unless you're handicapped or something, can, to come over here and ask Nicholas questions.
Bill, is there any
Anybody
chance we can get that presentation up, because people aren't going to have any idea what to ask if I don't.
I didn't go on for a few months, but one of the purposes of Red Move is eventually try to train candidates, even on the hot seat, even talking, and to rehearse ahead of time. I just got that PowerPoint today, for example, you got that a week ago.
Can't hear you, Bill.
I'm saying, I'm trying not to be negative, but I'm saying, we'll get it up. But just remember, everybody right now is learning experience, so we still do now. When we do go through the Atlantis, I produce this. I watch every detail, every minute, in cameras and that sort of thing. It takes a lot of work. This is where we learn. So if we're making mistakes, it's okay. That's for the candidates. We've got candidates, let's get them in here. Give them 10 or 15 minutes to do the quick interviews and practice.
We're going to have a thing like we did last time called a spotlight.
So we should come in here, we should run through real fast PowerPoint and walk through it. Ray and I walk through it. So I'm just saying, here's needed early. Walk through. So I don't know where it is right now. Let me do it again.
But if you have candidates or suspect somebody considering it, get a hold of us and we'll do a spotlight on them. Go ahead, Tony.
Is that the PowerPoint?
That's it.
You got it. I was just going to be filler with Nicholas if we didn't have the PowerPoint.
It's hard to hear you.
I said I was just going to be filler with Nicholas if we did not have the PowerPoint.
You got it.
So Nicholas, you have control. So I'm not, for all of us here, because we're all a family, this is okay. If we talk about, we don't talk about what we do better, right?
Okay, I'm going to blast through this, but understand election integrity involves a lot of pieces. And so I'm going to blast through some of the pieces that hopefully will give you an idea that there's something wrong and that maybe you can ask a question about, because that's all I can do in the fact that we only have a few minutes left. So I'm going to blast through this very quickly and show you the things that stand out the most. First is in the polling books. There was 6,333 people that were marked what's called AVT. That stands for already voted. 6,333 people. Those are people who showed up to a poll, voted by machine, and then later on a mail-in ballot showed up for the same person who'd already voted by machine. That's what we call an anomaly. 6,300 people out of the 360,000 people who were registered, 250,000 that voted. You end up with 2.4%, which is a huge number of those who are already voted. The other thing is that we looked at the cast vote records and we looked at the polling books and the voter registration, and we can't get any of them to match. Problem was that they were taking people out of the system during an election cycle. why anybody would be removing anyone from the voter rolls during an election, live election cycle is so beyond me, I can't even imagine. Imagine if you, and this is going to show my age, imagine you have a register for your checkbook, and somehow the bank can come in and erase an entry in your checkbook before before your check had cleared. Could you ever balance your checkbook? And of course, that answer is no. That's exactly what we're having here. So in two cases, which I tracked down, one guy died on Sunday before the election, one guy died on Tuesday before the election, and yet both of them got to vote in this election. So they whine and cry about being disenfranchised. The fact that two dead people voted on election day disenfranchised two people that would have countered that, okay? So in this case, they added almost 8,000. There were 2,500 that were switched from inactive to active. There was, of the 3,500 that they removed during the election cycle, 615 of them voted in this election cycle that were removed by the time they canvassed. These two guys that died, they were removed by Friday. The election was on Tuesday. Listen, we know people that are still here that have died 6 and 7 years ago that are still on the registry, okay? And yet they removed these two guys that died on Sunday and Tuesday, and by Friday they were gone, okay? And they weren't the only ones. Another 613 people were removed who voted just on the previous Tuesday. Here's again another anomaly. You see the two that I have pointed out here. During the election, the rule is the NRS code says you cannot remove people in bulk using a program. And so you can only do that by people in the office going in and removing someone. So explain to me how during an election cycle, and they wouldn't even give us 5 minutes to meet with us, 998 people were all removed on the 24th of October, keeping in mind that early voting started on the 19th. So we're right in the middle of doing voting, and they've removed 988 people from the voter rolls all in one day. That you can't, there's not enough staff to be able to do that. Then if that wasn't enough, then on Sunday, the 3rd, almost another 450 were removed. Again, Sunday afternoon, you have nothing better to do preparing for an election on Tuesday, and I'm going to direct all my staff to remove people from the voter rolls. They should be removing nobody. They should all be in there so we can balance these books, and you just can't. Then, for 2 days after the election, the 6th and 7th, somehow mysteriously, 2,994 ballots, mail-in ballots showed up that were just independent third-party voters. So if you can see the trends together, and then all of a sudden you see that where it's red circled, the yellow line jets up, and then you see it go back to the same kind of trending. That's what's called an anomaly. That is not normal. Where do these 2,994 independent ballots come from? Nobody knows, but someone should answer. Again, this is just more of validating that just in a different graph. But 1,120 on one day, 1,874 the next day. This is the one race that shows an anomaly that should never have happened. If you're not familiar with the Cotter Conway, Jennifer Richards race, that was for, I think, it was municipal judge, I think Department 2, I believe. He had been a sitting judge. He'd been appointed. He'd been sitting on that bench for about 7 or 8 years. So that means he has a lot of experience. He came out and he campaigned well. He canvassed in my neighborhood, and he was at almost every single event. He was here a number of times. This guy did everything right. Everything was in his favor. He was essentially an incumbent, having already sat there. And if you'll look at this, the green line is Jennifer Richards. Most of us couldn't even tell who, if someone said, what's the name of the judge running against Cotter Conway, most of us couldn't even have told you. She didn't campaign. There were no signs out. She didn't do interviews. She did nothing. And her history is that she was appointed to most of the positions that she's held, and she had almost no time in a courtroom, not even as a prosecuting or defending attorney. So how did someone who didn't campaign, didn't get out and work, and didn't do anything register an additional 18,000 mail-in ballots in a nonpartisan race against a sitting judge? None of this makes sense, and this is one that actually needs to be looked at. And I worked with Connor very close. He's a great guy. He was already doing a great job on it, and he took this pretty hard, which he should have. Somehow this was stolen from him, and we don't know how, but it needs to be investigated. Carter Conway and Jennifer Richards. He was what it was called the temp, or he filled in for judges. So this here could be potentially the smoking gun. So we downloaded the cast vote record for the 2020 election in March of 22, and that's what we used for all of our analysis. Recently, Patty, who I work with, who does a lot of the Excel spreadsheets and the graphs that you see in my reports, downloaded it again, and the next thing you know, I get a call, Nicholas, you've got to look at this. What happened was, when we downloaded it, the new file had an additional 1,683 records than the one we've been using for all of our analysis. Where did 1,683 cast vote records just appear from? So when we looked at trying to correlate the cast vote record number, so cast vote record number is when they run it through the tabulator, it's assigned a number. It's all done sequentially. One of the things we'd like to have them do is add a date and time stamp of them so we can actually have a better analysis, but they don't do that. It's just a sequential number. Well, you would think that if you count the ballots in 2020, that the order they counted them in would be in stone. Yet when we correlated it, 200,000 tabulator numbers different. Batch ID, 133,000 records had been changed. 248,000, almost 250,000 record IDs had been changed when you tie the cast vote record numbers together. Even in the group that's called, it's called group for the kind of vote it was, mail-in, early voting, and election day, 9,300 records indicate they voted by a different method. If that's not alarming, it should be. How did we get so many things that were changed? Even the presidential Democrat Party, 114,000 records were changed. Either someone voted and then didn't, or did and did and then didn't and then did. And the same thing for the Republican. And when you total them, they still came up very, very, very close to what the original ones were. All total, when we realign them with what's called a print ID, which was a tabulator number, batch ID, and record ID, all being put together, when we tied the two databases together using those three pieces of criteria, everything else was the same except the cast vote record number. 252,662 records out of 254,000 records were different. That should be virtually an impossibility, and yet they've changed all of the cast vote records, like they counted them again in a different sequence. The last thing is I pulled down this tax assessor database, and the database gives you, so there's some criteria. If you, according to the IRS code, you live in this state, you have to be here for 60 days. If you live in this county, you have to be here for 30 days. If you live in a residence, you have to be there for 10 days. That residence has to have one bedroom. That's what this law says. However, that's in contradiction to the homeless group that says all you have to do is say what 4 streets you sleep in. You're supposed to be able, you have to receive mail there. You can't receive mail. And so that's a contradiction to the other statutes. When I tied the cast vote records addresses into the tax assessor's database, there were 20,000. I know it's strange it was even, but it was 20,000 exactly. The number of voters who did not have a data address in the tax assessor's database that corresponded. 20,000 people are in the voter registry that has an address that doesn't show up in the assessor's database. So out of that, 16,000, over 16,000 of those people voted, which means that they didn't even check the IRS code for, are you living in a legitimate place? Did we find some really crazy things? Yes. One person was registered at a bank. 2 people were registered in a bathroom at a park. So we had 443 registered to a parking garage that turned out to be, some of it was Arlington Towers. So there's a lot of work. We're going to have to do some canvassing to fix some of that. The conclusion: the general 2024 cast vote records has thousands more votes than we can correlate to the voter rolls and the polling books, and a lot of that's because they took them out during the election. Also, they added in 7,900 people. They removed 3,500, and then a couple were removed within 3 days of the election. Then of the 22 of the cast vote records, there's 252,000 cast vote numbers that have been altered for some reason. And then finally, 2,994 mail-in ballots that mysteriously showed up from third party. And then finally, 6,333 people marked as already voted. And here's the kicker: that may be just the tip of the iceberg, because there were people who came in that we talked to managers. They said, we scanned your thing in and it says, oh, you already voted. Well, the way you get that is that someone has turned in a mail-in ballot. So we don't know what's election fraud or voter fraud. If someone tried to vote twice, that's voter fraud. If they didn't know somebody else had turned in a ballot for them, that's election fraud. So we don't know. So when you come in and they say, oh, you already voted, they give you a provisional voting ballot and you vote by machine. There's a flag on that card that says this is provisional. We don't know how many, because they don't say AVT. They just say, here's a provisional. Then we can't find out how many of the provisional ballots, 4,200 and some plus, were ever counted. There's no mechanism to find out how many of those were switched from provisional into an election, into a early voting or election day. And finally, 20,000 people that don't have a record in the tax assessor's database, 16,200 voted, and so there's no checking on that. So that's it.
Go ahead and ask questions, but come. No, hold on. Hold on.
To cure the votes that are provisional, there should be a process. We have one. And I was participating in that. And I can tell you, a lot of things that you said are correct. We never could cure them.
So curing provisional, that happens not like a ballot, like a signature did not match, because that comes up in polling books, and you go cure those, right? You take that and you go out and you get a signature, or you have them turn in another card and they, okay, yeah, it matches. That's curing a ballot. But when you do provisionals, they take that information, it goes to the Secretary of State. The Secretary of State is supposed to do an analysis, make sure they live where they're supposed to, that they have been here the allotted amount of time, all that stuff. And they come back and say, yes, it's legitimate, and so you can vote. How they decide on whether you someone turned in a mail-in ballot for you, and then you do one by machine, nobody knows which one they decide they're going to pick. And they don't ever tell us which one of those they picked.
That's true. Our clerk in Douglas County decided that the first ballot comes in, it's the signature, that's what she chose. And it's the first ballot that came in. If it happened to be the mail ballot, then she chose that, and you would have to go and contest it. But how do you know?
Well, and you don't know, because they have up until 5 o'clock on Friday to get back the information back to a county to say, yes, we want you to use we're authorizing the provisional ballot. These guys, and by the way, provisional used to be all by paper. Now it's all by machine, by touchscreen machine.
And I can tell you also, because I was a poll watcher, I saw people that are homeless in state line, because it was even more precarious, because we were right there at the California border. And this homeless guy with a California driver's license that's outdated from Southern California, he decided to live on the Nevada side of the street for that election. He came in person, and he was allowed to vote, but for the president only. And I don't know what the legalities are, but the person who ran the election said, well, I have to call my clerk because I was told I will have to let them vote for the president. And there seems to be some kind of a law that says they can vote. I think it's rather preposterous.
The whole idea of homeless being able to vote, and literally it's literally whatever goes, whatever precinct captain or an ROV or the clerk says that they will allow, that's essentially what's going to go in your county. And most of it doesn't even, a lot of it, in my opinion, does not line up with the Nevada revised statutes.
Another question, completely different. Are you in contact at all, or did somebody go to that election integrity event on the 5th of this month in Vegas at the Aeon Hotel?
No, we are working with Mark Cook, who was
Yeah,
one of the
okay,
guys.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
he was here. I spent
Mhm.
almost a whole day with him, starting Monday night through Tuesday night. And so I did spend a lot of time with him. He's building an army. A lot of the stuff that he said, I gave him my report that substantiated most of the things that he said were wrong with our elections for election integrity. He's building an army. His method of voting, or not voting, but hand counting is very, very, very effective. And I did hand counting down in Nye County, and what he has, I think, is way more transparent. It has way more teeth to it. And if we can get Washoe County and any other counties to do a hand count to back this up, that would be a huge step in the right direction.
Yes, I have a question. What's the future? Like, what are we going to do from here forward?
Well, part of it is learning to hand count, because we're still going to push that and go in that direction. And so my recommendation is, in the various parties, use the parties as a kind of a proving ground and a learning training place of how to count these ballots by hand. The method works at that level as well as it does any other level, and even for the county. Otherwise, there's questions. I was teaching how to mark your ballot. There is going to be, and I don't know if they're going to have the machines in the new 2026 election or not. If someone knows, let me know. But there are a lot of places you go. You do the touchscreen machine, a touchscreen, and then when you submit it and finalize it, it actually prints out a ballot, and then you take that next table over, and you put that right into the scanner, and that gets imaged, gets an imprint number, and then it gets counted on a stick there. Then they take the sticks, all go into the tabulator, and it all counts. So at least that has a little bit better chain of custody. And it's all by paper, so we could count all of those. That would be very helpful, because right now with the VVPATs, there's QR codes or whatever there is on that, and you can't read them, and they won't let us near them. So at least having ballots. So the question is, do we vote early? Do we vote late? The election integrity people that I talked to, including Mark Cook, who was just here, our sentiment is you vote, if at all possible, on election day. And the reason is because it gives them less time to shove in additional ballots. Because the more time they have to figure out how far behind they are, the more time it gives them to manufacture. By the way, I didn't get it covered, but there was 72,000 just in Washoe County alone, mail-in ballots that never got turned in or were used to be counted. 72,000. That is trouble waiting to happen. So whatever we can do to get rid of the mail-in ballots, we're going to continue to fight that fight. The stuff I work with, the Mike Lindell Cause of America stuff as well. And so 1 or 2 days of voting, you have to show voter ID, which, by the way, the 26th election, question 7 passed by 72%. We have to make sure that passes again. And that will help cut things down. But in the meantime, they can't ask you for your ID. You going to vote, do it. But again, we recommend using your mail-in ballot that in as late as possible on election day. And for those who have used the excuse, oh, well, what about the weather? So I went back and looked at the weather statistically, and other than the 2022 general election, that there was a 5-hour snowstorm here. Right. Other than that, it's always been great weather. I mean, I've looked at 20 elections, and it's just statistically, that was just a weird day that happened. That doesn't happen on a regular basis. So again, if you can go down on election day and turn in your mail-in ballot, that's what we recommend. And we recommend, and I have a video on it, when you mark in your bubble, if you run a line from the bubble over into 1 or 2 letters of the party, that leaves a tail and a trail. If they move your bubble in the machine, they cannot move the letters with a line in it, So now we catch them in the act. And so all the scare tactics of, that'll send it to adjudication. First of all, it doesn't. I went through this with Mark Velasco, went through it with the ROV. We have that video showing up. It meets all the NRS criteria. It does not invalidate your ballot. And if you do that, then if it goes to adjudication, they actually know what your intent was. And we work with an inside adjudicator down in Clark County, and they had thousands of people voted using that method. And she saw 2 races, not 2 ballots, 2 races on ballots of the whole thing. So they didn't adjudicate the whole thing. They just adjudicated because 2 bubbles had a mark in it.
I'm also curious
Go ahead.
at a state level. Are there any amendments or bills or anything like that that's moving forward to make the election more honest?
I don't know. Oscar's not here. He's done a lot of work on that. I did put in some information on it. We got no movement in the right direction to help secure our elections. I've asked the county commissioners to define the term caste. Caste is defined at the federal level, but it's in contradiction to the NRS codes, the way in Chapter 293, which is the election statutes. It opposes that. At the federal level, it's when the ballot or the vote leaves the hand of the voter. In the 293, it's used 91 times, and it's when they have received your ballot or they've counted it. So there's a conflict. So on May 28th of 2024, I went before the county commission. I handed out a document that pointed that out, and I was asking them to define it. And not only did they not define it, the DA's office said, oh, you have to pass those all in, took them away from the county commissioners, and then cut my time out. And they actually threatened to have me removed because I needed 2 minutes and 45 seconds to explain that document. They cut my mic, and then they threatened to remove me by force and trespassing for disrupting the meeting when they stole my time trying to get this defined. So they're doing everything they can basically to keep it unfair and being able to have these doors that are open. Now, I'm not saying they're using them, but when you just saw my presentation, there's a lot of things that lead to questions. And while we'd like to demand answers, so far, whether we are, they're going, Nicholas, you're just being too harsh on them. Listen, for 4 years or 3 years, I was just asking didn't get us any more results than demanding. So I decided I'd go on record for demanding, because who do they work for? They're supposed to work for us, right? So that's what we're trying to do, learning how to vote, but getting, really the too big to rig is really what we have to do. You have to get out, you get precinct captains, get more people more people registered to vote, and then more people out to the polls to vote Republican, especially in the primary, so we get good people into these nonpartisan seats, because that's where that race happens for nonpartisan races. It's in June, not in November, it's in June.
Thank you. Hold on. We're trying to stay on schedule, 1 o'clock. If you have questions, get with Nicholas, ask him questions. But I have 3 things I want to mention. Tonight at Bully's in Sparks, Deandra Marketplace is first Friday this month. And they'll be out in the outdoor patio. They do a good job. Next month, first Friday, which will be really on a first Friday, August 1st, will be at Engine 8 Urban Winery by the Sparks Theater. September, it'll be at Famous Dave's. We're going to alternate Reno Sparks. And the other thing is, I think there's still sandwiches here. For $5, it's a good deal if you want to buy a sandwich to take home. Huh?
You take chips and drink.
I couldn't hear you.
Chips and a drink.
Also,
Chips and a drink.
Okay, whatever he said. $5, you can't go wrong. And then I told you about tonight, next meeting will be August 7th up here, and it's going to be a good one. I'm expecting 50 to 100 people because of the topic. Oh, the topic is Nevada Legislature 2025 report card. Remember I told you earlier? I know you weren't listening. And don't forget, she has hats and stuff back there, some swag stuff to buy. Can't hear you, Bill.
Speakers next time.
Who are the speakers next time?
Oh, the speakers next time are Robin Titus and Josh Skaggs. Robin is Minority Senate Leader for Nevada. Josh is the GOP Political Director. And later in the year, which will be a dinner, 99% sure we'll have the governor. Here come the gov. Anyway, with that in mind, thank you for coming. Stay, talk to Nicholas, ask questions. Don't forget, $5 is a good deal. Such a deal.
Oh, I know where the Barry's is, but where, if I get in the Barry's, I'll be able to find the conference, so wherever it is. Okay, thank you.
Congratulations, ladies. Haven't seen you around for a while. Good. Yeah, we really need to get ready now. There's just, I went to, I took seminar last 2 times. And then it's worse. Have you read it? I think he has a video on Rumble. If not, we should be able to sign up for it. He signed us all up at the lunch meeting after the dinner meeting, after at the church. There's he has a whole blog. And he gives all the updates every day. And the video is from Arapahoe County, and they actually, his story is like a 2-hour video that I watched before that. It was only meant for the Clark County election year. And it is just unbelievable. I haven't known the Arapahoe County, maybe you can ask me who has the information. The Arapahoe County clerk was the only one in the whole country who kept copies of her election records and didn't hand it over to the Secretary of State. In Colorado, it was a group state. And they came around like a couple days after the election and locked her out of the office and said, "You have to reset the machine." Nobody knew what happened, but she had to come before, and she was supposed to hand it over.
This is Bill. Thanks for tuning in to Red Move, another live stream event. A lot of good practice. And if you're a candidate, make sure you contact us so we can get you up here to practice, talk, and live stream. Take care, and we will see you next month at the Red Move, Nevada. redmove.org.